All right, everyone. Welcome to Deep Naked Thoughts. I'm your host, Val, and today I'm sitting down with my husband, aka Missionati, and he is going to talk to us about some really cool, interesting things. But before we do that, please introduce yourself and tell us a few things about yourself, what you do, what you like to do, and what you've been up to.
First to everybody, my name is Troy. I go by the name Missionati. Some of you guys are probably wondering by the hat, what does that actually mean? So Missionati stands for two things. So the machine part, ever since growing up, I've been a big fan of just sci-fi, robots, just big giant machines that's, conquer the world, that kind of thing. So that kind of stood out to me in a sense. And the ate part is that I am a huge lover of coffee. So the ate part is kind of like a latte, and an iced latte with vanilla is pretty much my favorite. So about me, I'm originally from El Paso, Texas. All the family's from Albuquerque, and a few things about myself. Well, first and foremost, so I work in public relations, and a couple of the hobbies that I have, obviously from besides from video games, I love with my taste in muscle cars. I own a Dodge Challenger Hellcat. It's kind of like my pride and joy on the weekends. I mean, obviously you are my pride and joy, Val. So that's one thing. The other thing too for hobbies is probably is the discussion that we're going to get into is Yu-Gi-Oh. I've been playing that for quite a bit now, and also just to play bass guitar on my free time. Hopefully, I can get into some rock band soon, so I play some local events. And yeah,
All
yeah, I'm
right,
pretty straightforward, a
so
jack of all trades.
So, a little background. So, when Troy and I, when we started dating, one of the things that I asked him was if he was into anime. And I asked him to tell me his favorite anime, and he asked me if I'd ever watched Yu Gi Oh! And so I had as a child, and he's like, well, it's one of my favorites. And so in dating, we started watching it together. And when we moved in, he showed me his card collection. So it was really cool because it was kind of going back to some like good childhood memories and kind of just exploring the show and exploring the cards. We kind of both just got into it just because we were seeing some of the cards that were on the show and we were just being kids having fun together. And then a year later of us just playing together, he actually joined his first regional tournament about a week ago, which is really cool because he didn't even play locals. He just played with me. And he had to teach me how to play because I don't like to read. I don't like to read card games. So then he taught himself, taught me, and then competed in regionals. And so that was quite of an kind of an experience. But tell us a little bit about how you got into the show, what you liked, and how you ended up liking Duel Monsters.
Well, there's a couple of reasons why. So I started getting into the game probably like when I was around elementary slash middle school. Around the time is, Yu-Gi-Oh was very different. If anybody out there who's played Yu-Gi-Oh a long time ago when they were like our age when we were kids, so Yu-Gi-Oh started off with, it was a set of decks and there would be these dual monsters that you would play. And you would pretty much fight, and each opponent would start off with 8,000 life points. And then the goal is to reduce your opponent's life points to zero. So that's how the game, worked. I mean, it still works to this day, just completely different from how I played it. And there's different monsters, and some monsters had effects, and you would use spells and traps to strengthen them, weaken your opponent's monsters, and you just go from there, and you would go back and forth, back and forth. And sometimes those games actually took forever because of how many cards were stacked in your deck. Because you would have a deck up to 60 cards, but now it's like the minimum is like 40, and that's just for, the card drawing and stuff. But yeah, I got into that stuff, and those cards are really fun because it's a very strategic game. The Duel Monsters is very complex, especially if you don't like what Val was talking about earlier when you were saying about the reading the cards. The text is complicated, and especially today in modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I've struggled a bit sometimes just to read and understand the cards, and there's different contexts to what how they imply into the field. So yeah, it's No, it's very interesting to say the least. Yu-Gi-Oh's always captured my attention. I just love like the anime style. I think it's very anime. That's easy on the eyes. I love all sorts of anime too. To start off with Mobile Suit Gundam, Hunter x Hunter, but um, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's just been just I just grew up with it and just watching the series. I
Hmm.
stopped at 5DS and I did not go anywhere from there. Like once GX ended, I was like, yeah, I
Mm.
faded away from that.
So, for you, what do you enjoy about Yu-Gi-Oh? Because I can tell you what I enjoy. So, for example, I very much enjoy the show. I enjoy the storyline. I enjoy watching the characters grow, and I enjoy their character arc and their growth journey and who they become, each character. So, I was very much in it for like the show, the story, the characters, and then the artwork and seeing like the cards and actually seeing the artwork on them and how well thought out strategically, kind of how you're talking about the strategy. That's something that I very much enjoyed. I obviously enjoy playing with you because it definitely gives my brain quite quite the competition. So I definitely enjoy that and I like that. But what is it for you that kind of grabbed your attention and you're like, I want to play this? Like, what was it about Yu-Gi-Oh or Duel Monsters?
Well, this goes back into the machines thing, right? So obviously, I loved playing when I used to play like PS1 games. I used to love just like you know the the first person action adventure with robots and machines and stuff. And notably, Yu-Gi-Oh has an archetype for machines. And when I first started playing, I've collected a card that I've had ever since middle school, and I think it was from the first season, Slot Machine. And
Mm.
Slot Machine was like one of my favorites. And there's like if you look into modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, there are so many machine like variants inside that archetype alone. That is what drawed my eye. And, other people like spellcasters, dragons.
I'm a
I mean, the
Dragons girl.
archetypes,
Yeah.
yeah, you are. The archetypes thing just goes on, but the machines part, I just think that's so cool and they're so powerful. But
Mm.
that's kind of like that's what drew me in because I love that stuff. I love it. I'm fascinated by just like robots in general. It's just so cool.
No, and I like that. I think one thing that I do love about Duel Monsters specifically is
Hmm.
that you can customize your deck according to your personality. So you
Hmm.
talked a lot about dragons. So I like dragons. There's a dragon depiction in almost every culture. I just think dragons are really cool. If any of you guys like Game of Thrones, like dragons, like the mother of dragons. I just love
Oh
dragons.
yeah.
But my deck is about dragons. And so I really like that we're just compatible in this way that we like dual monsters. But yeah, Troy's definitely a machine guy. And so it's cool to see his deck. So before you walk us through your deck, because I know you're ready to show us, just tell us how the game has changed. So definitely when you and I were growing up, I remember the card game. It was very much, not exactly, but it was kind of like Pokemon where you had a card game and it was about who had the strongest Pokemon and then you just beat each other to the points, right? So it was pretty self-explanatory, and then instead of having your Pokemon, you had your monsters. So walk us through how the game has changed since we were kids and something that we grew up with, like that nostalgia and that kind of system, versus how the game has evolved, because it is so competitive nowadays that it's
It
kind of hard
is.
for me to keep up with. I enjoy watching it because I understand it, but to play it, you have to like think in the moment and not just about your deck and your monsters, but other people's deck and other people's monsters. So how has the game changed? Walk us through that.
Well, the game, for any new Yu-Gi-Oh players out there watching, or anybody that's getting familiarized with Yu-Gi-Oh for the first time, and if anybody like no matter what age you are, Yu-Gi-Oh is more complex than ever. There are bigger strategies, and a lot of the times, if you have to have decks where you're able to wipe your opponent out within 1 to 2 moves. That is how the game is played today. There are so many, like I was talking about earlier about the archetypes. New archetypes have been introduced, and we also have different different types of cards from the extra deck. So the extra deck was introduced a few years ago. So when you first started off in Yu-Gi-Oh, when the show first kicked off, they had fusion summons. So you can take two monsters together and you can fuse them together, like two dragons, and you get them and you get like a twin dragon. Or in this case, if you had three blue eyes white dragons, which that name might sound familiar, Val uses them all the time. It's they turn into the Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Now, the game has grown so much to where now there are things like synchros where you need like a tuner monster to comply with like another other non-tuner monster, and you get a synchro. And then there's also XYZs, XYZs, right? And these things are required to where the rank of the monster, because there's rankings between each monster that you play, and they combine together and you get an XE monster, but they turn into a rank. I'm sorry, yeah, a level. I was getting my stuff mixed up there. So yeah, so H monster has a level, but the XE monsters have a rank. So as you can see, it gets crazier and crazier, and then you get into the links and the pendulums, and these things just go on, on and on. But the problem with it is that so many cards have long texts like of different effects, and so it's really complicated to stay in the game, and it's very I would just tell you from experience, it's mentally exhausting.
Mm.
You got to think play by play, and you got to watch your opponent and see what kind of effects they're throwing at you, and you have to be able to counter those effects. That's where things start to get just really complicated. And back then, most monsters didn't even have effects; they were all normal. And
Yeah.
the thing is, I've never seen a monster in any kind of like modern day Yu-Gi-Oh that is normal. There's none of that. There's only two that are normal monsters, and that is usually the Dark Magician or the Blue Eyes White Dragon. And then vaguely you'll see like some other, maybe two or three other ones that require normal monsters in their decks. And so the game, like I said, it's become very complex to the point where you do need no more than 40 cards because it's all a game of mathematics, the odds of drawing the card. Also having duplicates. And
Hmm.
then when people started finding exploits in the game, and now there are banned slash forbidden monsters slash traps and spells, and the list just goes on and on. There's like you can only play one version of this card, two versions of this card. You can't play that card at all. So, like I said, Yu-Gi-Oh is being so. I think it's just one of the most complex games aside from Magic the Gathering. Um, yeah, you need to spend a lot of time, and you need to be a very good strategist of when you are playing Yu-Gi-Oh. But also at the same time, you have to be very lucky. Guess what? This is so true. And if
Hmm.
you are not playing first, there's a 50 to 75% chance that you're gonna lose that duel.
So I'd say that when I first got into playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Duel Monsters, I'm gonna use those terms interchangeably. But when I first got started, one of the things that I really enjoyed about it was playing with the characters that I grew up watching the show around. So, for example, like Dark Magician Girl, Dark Magician, Blue Eyes. It's like I saw those cards in the show, and it was kind of cool to get to hold the card and then like play with it, kind of like you're saying. And so for me, that's what I liked about it. But now it's kind of like a different beast, and there's so many archetypes and types of monsters that were never in the show. Some of them were, obviously, like Blue Eyes is kind of a reoccurring one. And then if you XC summon monsters, I think that one comes from GX, things like that.
No, see, that's where it gets things just see. There's so many different types of shows, and that's where like for XZ monsters do come from like a series that's two series after the GX. So it like I said, it's just so confusing and it's hard to keep
Yeah,
track of it.
it is. It's hard to keep track. So
Yeah.
if the creators are out there for Val. I would love if they could bring back the show and kind of have that contingency, and like we could watch like Grown Up Yugi and like see what he's up to, or like what happened to Kaiba and his freaking company and Kabakor. Like I like the storyline. I like the characters. I'm invested in that. And yes, I like to play. It's just modern Yu-Gi-Oh or modern Duel Monsters is, like you said, it's really complex and it's very easy to make mistakes because of the wording. So the wording is very, very precise and it's very specific. And like with that said, it's I get easily frustrated because I think I have this whole strategy under my sleeve and then it's like, nah, you read that wrong, girl. Like it's not like that.
Hmm.
So can you walk us through some of that?
Like in terms of the like the deck itself, like for my deck, for example, like I could
Um,
just walk through that, or
Sure, you know what? If you don't mind, maybe like walking us through your deck and kind of your combination and like
yeah.
just your machine, your deck archetype and kind of like what
Hmm.
you're doing and what cards you're playing with,
Hmm.
just so that the
Well,
audience can kind of see that visual.
yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually gonna grab my deck here. So for everybody that's watching, and probably there are Yu-Gi-Oh players out there, machine decks are kind of not favored if you're playing like a whole Earth machine. It's just because there are totally different cards, and I'm telling you right now, like recently they just released the Yummy and K9 archetype cards, and those ones are I've played them in the tournament, which we'll probably discuss later, and those are really really hard. And for my deck, I tried to build it strategically to at least give other people a good, at least to give myself a decent fight. And I just like to pick my different cards, so I like to pick machines. So right here is my deck box. I'm a big fan of turquoise, first and foremost, because I've seen most machines and robots I've watched, they've had these types of colors, and so that's kind of like I love these my favorite colors. But this is a really nice case. This is where I keep all of my nice cards. And so when I usually open it up, oh, I get my whole list of cards right here. By the way, when we were talking about there's slot machines. So for those who are like watching, so slot machine is like this is one of the OG vanilla monsters. And when I say vanilla, these are the normals, normal monsters. They have no effects. They just have like their power, and you see they go by their attack and their defense, and they have their levels. But
These ones from the show.
yes, yes, absolutely. And so if I go into my deck, I have everything organized alphabetically. So to start off, I have so for those I think I haven't mentioned it before. When you play Yu-Gi-Oh, you obviously have a main deck which is comprised of that 40 to 60 card combo. But there's also the extra deck. And what these things do is because there are abilities to where a lot of your cards in your deck are able to summon very special monsters, and so this is where the special monsters belong to. They belong in the extra deck on the field. So I'll just go into a little bit of detail, but you have three types of decks. You have your main deck, your extra deck, and then your side deck. So when you actually play in a tournament or a match, now between duels, you have the option of switching out some of your cards. The side deck will allow you to do that. That way you can mix up your strategy and confuse your opponents pretty well if you play your cards right. But what I will about to show you guys is my modern day Earth machine, whatever, like Dark Machine, because there's so many different attributes to the cards. So right here, as you guys can see, I have a whole list of different cards, and you can probably see that some of them look like they're duplicates. I keep the duplicates in there for a reason because that increases my chances, right? So if I just go through, because I play with Val all the time, and Val's got a Blue Eyes deck, as we mentioned. So she has a lot of power up cards that get her monsters out in the field. So like mine's all about resource management. And as I go in through my cards, different archetypes, and I'll just go through some of them to name a few. The first archetype that I have, or the first type of machines I do have, is called Infinite Track, and so these are kind of like your like tank style looking cards. And so as you could probably see, so they have some type of like a tread or caterpillar like looking vehicles. As you could probably see, I know the glare from the camera, but then I also have these new ones. So back when Yu-Gi-Oh! 5DS came out, and they had a new type of machine called Machina. And Machinas were really cool, and they actually released a deck about a couple of years ago. And so these are the kind of monsters that I like. And see, look, as you can see, a lot of their colors are turquoise. So it's pretty cool. I like that same effect. So I use a lot of those. And I
Mm-hmm.
also use, like trains and so on and so forth. But what's interesting was a couple of months ago, right before my tournament, I've seen that these cards called spirals, and what these are, they're like spy cards. They have like agents and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, that
I've
threw me
always been
off.
fascinated by hacking and stuff, so I use that to throw my opponents off. So I have like one that's called a double agent, and
Yeah,
he can sneak onto the field and occupy one of your opponent's monster zones. And
yeah,
see,
I
like I
will.
have,
Oh,
yeah, so I have like a no, no, it's an assortment of traps though. But yeah, that's kind of like my deck in a nutshell. So I have like a lot of machines to start.
so I was gonna add that one thing that I do like about dual monsters, in comparison to like let's say chess or Monopoly, because I like chess and Monopoly, is that with a deck it's very customizable, and so you
Yeah,
choose your cards. You choose if you want to be a more offensive deck or a more defensive deck. So you build
yeah,
from the ground up. So the way you
that's right.
customize your deck is like sky's the limit. Like there's so many combinations that you could have. And
Hundreds of
so
thousands.
yeah, and so I think that's what grabs the attention of a lot of players is it's not like a game that's already been created and established and like these are like the things that you can do. I mean, you can do that with Duel Monsters, but the personality, the customization, it's
Absolutely.
kind of like an extension of your personality. So for me, again, I like dragons and I like the lore of dragons and I like that it's a big
Hmm.
cultural thing and I think
Yeah,
that it's a really like majestic being. Like I like dragons. Like it is what it is. Troy likes
yeah,
machines, but we can both have like an extension of our personality and build our deck and then like duel each other. So it's always like me against his machines, and like I try to make like some really bad jokes about how like my dragons are just gonna like melt his machines or whatever. But
yeah. But this
yeah,
is actually so for everybody's like self-awareness. So this is Val's deck, and Val really loves lotus flowers. And
yeah,
I got this case
and the
for
color
her
purple,
about last
yeah,
year. Yeah, I got
yeah.
this case for her last year, and if you open it up, you'll actually see a dragon card that's in there. So this is Blue Eyes Shining Dragon, and this is from actual the first Yu-Gi-Oh movie. So there are a
Mm.
couple movies out there, but what I did was for her, so I because she really loves Blue Eyes White Dragon, so I actually got her a whole sleeve just to for
Mm-hmm.
to show Blue Eyes White Dragons. I thought that was really cool, but she's got everything but dragons in here. It's so cool.
But yeah, I mean, like the whole game, like it's very customizable. The way you carry your pieces, the sleeves, the boxes, the cards. That's one thing that I really do like about playing the game. Again, if I could go back, I would just enjoy watching the manga. But playing the game is a whole different kind of like beast. So, what can you tell us about your first regional tournament? Because Troy mentioned
Oh,
a
this
few new cards, so the yummy cards and the canine cards.
hate those
So
cards.
I've looked at the yummy cards, and straight up they look like little snacks. So imagine like going to a tournament and then getting your butt kicked by like a freaking cookie or like a
It happened
smoothie,
to me.
and you're like that thing beat me, like not some beautiful beastly dragon, like a fucking cookie, you know.
It's the
uh
effects.
yeah, so then you're just like, wow, like sky's the limit. Like if you really like food, you could totally build a little yummy deck. So it's interesting because you're just like, that beat you, that's what took you down, that's what got you. But with that said, it's about quick thinking and being witty and being quick on your feet and knowing how to respond. So if you're a mentalist, if you are a strategist, I can see how this game would be very attractive to you. Um, I would be like, ladies and gentlemen, how it would be attractive to many players because like you just have to think fast. So what can you tell us
Hmm.
about your first regional tournament? What did you learn? What
Oh,
did you like? What did you not like?
okay. Well, this is going to be a pretty big one, and I hope this provides some really good insight for anybody who's interested in playing Yu-Gi-Oh or has played in many regionals, and you guys can hear my insights. I haven't really seen much. There's quite a few people that run decks like mine, where they have a combined infinite track machina because they work really well together. So I competed in the Seattle regionals last week. And this was an interesting time because I was trying to figure out how this was gonna work. So yeah, basically before you enter the tournament, or basically on the before the day of, you have to make sure the deck that you're using is prepared, that you have the right amount of cards, none of them are banned, and you have the right
Mhm.
quantity. Um, Doing a couple of play tests with them, making sure all the card sleeves match. To make sure you have some dice, depending on who wants to go first, a coin if any cards allow that. Um, yeah, so what we did was on the day of, we had to get up super early because this is
Mhm.
Seattle we're talking about. So if you guys are not in Seattle, I-5 is so stupid. So we were driving and we found parking and all that stuff. We went into the event arena, is what we would call it. It was like in an area where it was near a food court. I saw that there was a bunch of players already. They're all, I could tell you right now, the card playing community is very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, I will say that there are different cliques, like different groups of like maybe 3 or 4 people who know each other by heart because they play at locals all the time. So,
Mhm.
granted, this is, you came with me, and it was kind of awkward because you're just by yourself. You don't know anybody, so you have to network your way in there.
Mhm.
The card shop that we usually go to is this was the one that was running the show. I was surprised at how formal the event really was. Tables were already set up. There was actually official Yu-Gi-Oh judges, and they
Mhm.
had a whole system with Konami to where you have to register your card game ID. So when you get into the system, you have to create a card game ID, otherwise you can't enroll into a tournament. But I enrolled in there, and I remember the rules were very strict. I remember they said if you didn't register by 9:45, you're gonna get a match one loss, and the rules were being enforced. And I will tell you right now, and this is common. If you guys go to any card shops or GameStop, BO body odor is very very terrible. It sucks. It really does. You should clean up after yourself. That's just real, basic rules. And I remember the judges were about to toss people match one losses because people smelled bad. And I know for a fact, because Val, you know it too. I could smell it pretty much when we walked in there. So we were kind of like, yeah, it's something that you had to expect along the bat. Now, going into the tournament, so what they do is they have you in a Swiss format. So right when we got there, I think there was about 190 players, and what this means is you would play 8 matches. And so how the Swiss thing works is like obviously anybody with the best record is the winner, right, of the regionals. And depending on how many people are placed or how many people get invitations to nationals. And so basically, if you play, say, in the top 8 out of those 192 people, you will get a top block and you'll get an invite to the national qualifier. So I registered
I
myself into the
oh,
system.
real
What's
quick.
up?
I believe that the national qualifier was in Las Vegas.
No, it was in
So
It was in Indianapolis. Yeah,
Indianapolis. Well,
Indianapolis. Yeah,
this is some pretty big stuff because as kind of like a
yeah.
spectator, so not actually competing but just watching, I was like, oh wow, like this is like I don't want to say like a big deal, but it's like this is serious. Like
Hmm.
people really do, put together their decks, study their decks like in and out,
Yeah,
like commit to like playing this over and over to figure out their strategy and then literally go out to compete and hoping that they get a spot at nationals. And so like it's a pretty big community, so it's kind of cool to see
yeah.
that like a show that was built around this game, I don't know which one came first, if it was a show or the game, but
Hmm.
that it's held and captivated so much attention through the years, and that the love for it is still going strong, and then like how competitive it can get.
Yeah.
Going back to the players, yeah, it was interesting because I come from like a background of sports. And so it's kind of interesting because when you're playing sports, yeah, like you're getting like sweaty and dirty and like maybe in a locker room it kind of smells. But then like
Yeah.
to go to like a game where like everybody's just like regularly dressed. I don't know, maybe they're just sweating a lot. Maybe it's stressful. I don't know. But yes, there was definitely quite an aroma that was not the best.
Yeah,
I
I
will say
know, but
that.
yeah, yeah. So going back to the actual start of the tournament, so I got placed, and keep in mind this was my very first um, time actually playing
Mhm.
in person with
Mhm.
somebody. I mean, I've used training on this like website called Blue Book, and I've used the what is it, the you know Duel apps and all that stuff, and I will or Master Duel, and this was my first duel actually in person against somebody else, and I will tell you it is completely different. I learned a lot of new. It's interesting. There's like duel etiquette, knowing when to let your player respond, so on and so forth. And luckily, I was fortunate enough to have an opponent who was very easygoing and pretty much. I kind of explained that was like my first time, so he pretty much kind of like laid it out and just showed me how, in case if I messed up, he was pretty cool and he pointed stuff out for me. Yeah, he used that Yummy deck. So a lot of the people, when Yummy came out on that week, so everybody was going to buy a bunch of these cards and test them out at this regionals tournament. And you know what? The top eight had like quite a few Yummy cards and also the K9 Draco Tails. So that was like a new archetype that they announced. So
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty interesting. Yeah, and here I am as a machine guy, and it's kind of funny. So, if you guys are wondering, so machines do have some strengths, but they also have some weaknesses. The strength being is that I can wipe if I place my cards correctly, and if I usually get a first turn, which not really, I didn't get really a first turn in any of my tools of the tournaments, unfortunately. I can set my board up really fast, and if I do get my strong monsters on the field, then I can wipe people out within one turn. One it in value, you know some of those monsters. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it was pretty grueling because I got negated a lot. Um, I even after switching out, and I had some really powerful cards. Surprisingly, nobody used hand traps on me, and that was another thing I was going to get. A common card that people use a lot are hand traps, and like I'll give you one. There's one that's called Ash Blossom, and so basically it's a card where if opponent is trying to reach from the deck or special summon from the deck, they can immediately activate, negate, or discard their card and negate that effect, which was super annoying. I've never had that happen, thank God. But there are other cards that were just like I kept getting countered, and I just did some of the decks, some of the duels, or I didn't draw the right cards at the time. It was really annoying. I
Mm-hmm.
did have some really good duels. I met some good archetypes along the way. Yeah. Just to note this though. So the common meta decks and what meta decks are, these are the most popular and the ones that are like kind of like geared into modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Some archetypes are like Malice, and Malice is like a Cyberse deck. Very interesting. Then you got Yami, Draco Tail,
Mm-hmm.
Ryzeal, which is like Thunder archetype cards, and you use a lot of them. Mitsurugi,
There's zombie
Mementos
archetypes
cards.
because I was
Yeah, oh,
playing a few
yeah,
zombies a
yeah,
few
Mementos,
months
and
ago.
I mean, it just goes on and on. And a lot of people still fusion summon, which was crazy. I've never really seen either. I haven't really seen much XZ monsters. I've seen a lot of links. Links and fusions is what people are really going for in these meta decks. But the experience was pretty good. My deck succeeded against Ryzeal. Some statistics here. Yeah, I succeeded against Ryzeal, and one guy was playing an Elemental Hero, which was from like the GX series,
Mm.
but we did pretty good. And the other ones, I'm telling you right now, uh, I held my ground for Mementos as long as I could, and obviously Yummy. I kept playing in
Yummy.
that
That
turn.
doesn't
I
even
was in
sound
second.
intimidating.
It doesn't.
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
Everybody's probably
Yeah.
watching like, what the heck? You
What
lost
the
to a
heck?
cookie
Yeah,
card, dude.
to look.
You have
Yeah.
to see the effects on these
Yeah.
cards. I'm telling you, the effects matter. And the problem is that some players, and this is true, I've seen some players where they rush way too quick, and I'm trying to figure out what a response is, and I'm just like, I have to read every single card. That
Mhm.
was my problem. A lot of times I had to just read people's cards because I was trying to figure out what effects they were trying to play. That way I can counter or combat that in any means necessary. I will tell you, statistically, when I played first, I ended up winning my duels, which was great.
Nice.
So that
Nice.
was that was a plus because I had my board set up. People were kind of like, "Well, darn, he's already got his board."
Mhm.
And there was only one duel I had where I started first and I just didn't have the cards are just in my favor, and
Mm.
it happens. It happens. Like I said,
Yeah.
it goes back to luck.
Yeah, so I guess to give a little bit more context, and I can speak on this, is the way you build your deck. So again, everything goes back to the player. So I think that's why the game is so loved, is because you either build a really good deck and you're just like, I did that, or you don't, and then you're like, ah, I didn't do that. But when you
Well,
have a
there's
very,
I was
oh,
oh sorry, no, no, babe, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say something very important.
mm-hmm,
But in regards to what you were saying about building your deck,
mm-hmm.
and this is what I just don't understand. Why does everybody have to stay with just the same ones over and over again? Everybody, that's another thing too. If you're gonna get into Yu-Gi-Oh, be creative. I mean, think strategically, obviously, because you want to pick out the best cards to combat those meta decks, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just that everybody picks the same old cards and everybody picks the same ones, and I'm trying to think to myself, I'm like, okay, I got to figure out ways to combat that,
Mm-hmm.
and most people are so used to seeing, oh, it looks like I'm gonna face Malice. I guess I'm gonna face Draziel, and then they come up against me with a machine deck. Wow, that caught me by surprise. I didn't know that. Do something really new. And I remember the guy with the Elemental Hero. I thought that was a really cool deck, and he actually gave me a good challenge too. And I've seen the Elemental cards like actually do really good, beat some of the
Mm.
modern Mega decks, just
Well,
depending on how you play it right.
Well, I think this kind of goes back to the show a little bit. Maybe not the show per se, but the way Konami is staying relevant is if they just keep the same cards, then there's nothing new to look forward to, like no new releases. So I think that's one thing that stays true to the show is like when people go to the card store and they're looking at cards, they're like, oh, they released this new cool card. And so it kind of draws players in, and then it gives players a new chance to like invest in new cards. And also, if I'm a business and I'm not making anything new, then I'm not selling anything new. So I get it from like a business perspective, but
Yeah,
I also see how like the trends, it's like, okay, well now that's the new thing, so everybody's going to go get that. And then it makes it not that much fun because everybody has the same toy, if that makes sense. Like for lack of better words,
yeah,
it's like, wow, you too, and it makes it almost boring. Like,
I
yeah, I've already
agree.
seen this. Like, I've already seen.
Yeah,
It's
and
not
I'll tell you,
original. It's not original.
it's not. And you know what? The problem is, I had one issue with the tournament in general. Um, to be honest with you, besides from constantly reading and reading card effects and just, I was just looking at the other archetypes and stuff, and I was just like, I was seeing the same thing over and over again. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people kept talking the same, pretty much. I mean, Yummy
Like
was just like the
lingo.
big thing. Yeah, the lingo was
Mm-hmm.
pretty much the same thing. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of got bored around match three. Just because I didn't see anything crazy. So like right around to match four, I saw that other unique one, the element of hero. I'm like, finally, somebody has something different.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what felt really good. And you know what? I would really like to see the old school cards actually be utilized in there. I really didn't see much of Blue Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool to see stuff like that, a Dark Magician deck, or a
Yeah.
Blue Eyes deck, or a Union Monster deck. I mean,
Yeah, I'd like to have like a
yeah,
Dark Magician Girl
yeah,
deck, like something like
yeah.
that. But
So,
they're not
so
being used anymore. It's like kind of those cards
well,
aren't even competitive.
yes and no. Yes and no. So the thing is, there is a different type of format. So what Yu-Gi-Oh, the modern day Yu-Gi-Oh uses an advanced format. So this is where they use those links, those Exe monsters like I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about.
Yeah.
A while back, there was a tournament that had, I forgot the name, Edison, yeah. And this is where the Edison format comes in. So the Edison format is pretty much like, hey, you could play, it's like going back in time to play like the old school card games, but it's still using, same old effects, but you can't just use links and all the other stuff from the extra deck, besides like from Synchro and below.
Mm-hmm.
It's it. I will say like I wish the advanced tournaments would actually do something really cool like that, where people those cards could still be playable. That would be
Mm-hmm.
great. I look. I'm gonna tell you right now. This is so true. Yummy can be defeated. Ryziel
Yeah.
can be defeated. Malice can be defeated. So on and so forth. My deck can be defeated. Blue Eyes can be defeated. And you know what?
Never.
Those cards can be defeated. And I will tell you one thing. My deck, if you know, like, and it's just a constant experiment, just a playing and seeing what the right time and the right place. And I mean, there's just so many variables within the tournament that I was just experimenting with. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because there are some cards that were just threw me off a curve, and
Mm.
and I will tell you right now, this being my first actual tournament, it was very mentally challenging, but it was great. I felt pretty good. I was kind of tired at first. You probably already know. I really
Mhm.
wasn't I wasn't fully energized that day, and yeah, it was kind of just hard to stay awake. And then you got tired, and obviously we kind of like dropped out because we were really tired.
It's an
And plus
all
we were
day
like,
kind of thing. It's
yeah,
an
it was an
all
all
day
day
of
kind of
just
thing. And you
thinking,
know
making
what?
quick decisions back to back to back to back.
Yes, and
Yeah.
just for the audience's awareness too, that tournament was also not only just an experiment, but it was just to have fun. I had a
Mhm.
great time. It was not bad. I made a lot of new connections, and
Mhm.
obviously I saw a lot of great decks that had different cards that I wanted to implement into my machine deck to make my machines more powerful. So
Mhm.
this was a great opportunity to see what the modern day Yu-Gi-Oh does look like.
Mhm.
And I will say there is another website called Dueling Book, and I've been using that quite a bit. And we've played it a couple of times. I
Mhm.
introduced Val into it. It's really harder to play on a computer than it is in person because it's really hard to explain what effects or what stuff that you're about to do. People just go way too fast in there, so it's just like yeah, it's pretty complicated. But yeah, that was pretty much my overall experience within the regional tournament. It
Mhm.
was great. It was ran really well.
Mhm.
Um, I just yeah, I think I know for a fact that was pretty much the only Earth Machine archetype in there. I don't think
Mhm.
anybody's like everybody was more focused on the K9 Draco Tails and Yummies.
Mhm. So, for anyone that is listening and maybe wants to get into this, what advice do you have for them?
All right. Yeah, this is going to be a two-parter. So the first thing I would say is just watch the show at first just to see what how the story evolves. That's what I did with Val, so that way she can understand bits and pieces of the game. Now, the way they do the show compared to the actual game rules itself is completely different.
Yeah.
As you watch each series, the rules exponentially change, and they just go all over the place. And Konami has a rule book for Yu-Gi-Oh, and it has so many different rules, and
Mhm.
so much subjectivity. And thank God that we have AI, because I can tell you right now, if you have a question about if you're doing the right thing for your cards, put it into AI specifically, and it'll actually answer the correct answer. Like 99% of the time, it'll give you the right choice. Like it's going to say, no, you cannot directly summon this card XYZ because of this.
Mhm.
So that's one thing as well. If you're going to be starting off and you really want to play against other people and possibly do a regionals tournament, I highly suggest getting just a dual box to start with a bunch of card sleeves. And this is really what's I mean, it keeps your cards in check. I don't have to lose my cards. Get yourself some dice, get yourself a coin or something like that for starters. It's because I use this for my case and I put it inside a backpack. Another thing too, get your own game mat. So with the game, it has its own different types of zones, and you have to use an authentic map for this, like including monster zones, so on and so forth, where you put all your cards on. So
Mhm.
I have my own custom Missionati game mat. This one I had created for me, and it's been so cool. I've been using this all the time, especially during the tournament, and I thought it was just so great just to use. It's been
Mhm.
fantastic. Another piece of advice I would give. I'm going to tell you right now, if you are trying to get into this thing competitively, like you want to make it big,
Mhm.
it's gonna take you years to do. I it's just crazy how this thing is competitive worldwide. And I could tell you many people at locals, they'll take the stiff. I've seen these players play way too seriously. That's another thing about the community. If you're going to get into Yu-Gi-Oh, they take this stuff very seriously.
Yeah, they do.
Even if you play this, and this is, like I said, a good chunk of the time. Either you play a wrong type of card or you use the wrong effect at the wrong time. Regardless, I mean, I admit my mistakes if I make a mistake in the game. Everybody does. It's life.
Hmm.
And when it's like people are like, you can't do that, you can't do that. I mean, it's like very enforceful. So I'm kind of like, okay, man, just take it easy, take it easy. It's just a game. Let's have fun. That's my next advice. Have fun with it. There are times where I play with Val, and the majority of the time we always have fun. And there are some times where I get competitive, and it's just for the fun of the sport. And I I'll tell you one thing, it's a really great hobby. So what Val and I usually do is I play Duel Monsters with her sometimes at local coffee shops and or just other areas, picnic tables. So we do that like on our off times. But yeah, those are a couple of different advice tips I can give out to people.
Yeah, so I just wanted to chime in a little bit. So what would you say to younger Troy if he were to see you now? Because I think one of the things that I really do like about this is that you're kind of going back into childhood and doing something that maybe like your inner
Right.
child, craved, or something that your inner child loved, whether it's a sport or a game or a hobby. It's kind of like nurturing that inner child. So what would you tell little Troy, like, hey buddy, like we're still playing, or like, hey buddy,
Mhm.
like, I don't know, like what would you tell your younger self?
Well, um, I mean, obviously, I'm still playing this game.
Mhm.
You just have to realize, and this is not just for little Troy, this is for everybody, it's a fun hobby. It's a
Mhm.
great hobby, you know, and some people take this as like, they really want to make it big. And for me, I take it as a hobby. Just remember, there's this thing called life,
Mhm.
and you enjoy this hobby,
Mhm.
but don't make it your life.
Yeah.
That's one big thing. I got to shoot out to every single Yu-Gi-Oh player in the world. It is not your life. It's a hobby and it's
It's a
something that you
game.
enjoy doing. It's a game. Yeah, exactly. It is a game. Um, look, I could talk about Yu-Gi-Oh, but you know what? I could probably in the next 5 seconds talk to you about like responsibilities, finances, what's going on in today's news. What we having for dinner tonight. Like different. I could talk about different things, and you know what? I've seen that's a common problem. So when Val and I would usually go to locals and we'll talk to people, sometimes the only thing to talk about is Yu-Gi-Oh, and you know what?
There's a
It's
whole
like with
life.
the yeah, there's a whole life ahead of you. Just just realize that. And I will say, like for me, like when the time is available, and you know it, Val, like when the time is available for me to play something like this on my time when I'm done with everything, that's when I'll start playing with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards or stuff like that. But then you have to come to the realization you're like, hey, time to get back to reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Val and I will we'll play Yu-Gi-Oh, but we also talk about other things. We talk about our life.
Mhm.
It's not it's it, don't let this game like rule your living and stuff and everything like that. Don't make it your life. Have it a hobby. Do something like that on the
Yeah, I guess
weekends.
don't make
Uh,
it your identity. It's like it's
yeah,
what you do, it's not who
exactly.
you are. That's kind of the
Now,
way I like to
granted,
lead.
yeah, and granted, I'm glad that some of the players out there do have that, they have responsibility, they have jobs, and they still play this stuff on the weekends, when they have the time. That's
Yeah.
cool. Do that. But don't make it your life. Do something on the back end. Don't be the typical living in your mom's basement kind of stuff. Go out, make something else better than yourself, and then have the time to play this. Because I will tell you though, Yu-Gi-Oh is great because it's helped me think strategically and a little bit better as a strategic planner. And then I've also learned it, it helps me read. Granted, I read news articles every day, especially for my job, but I don't, like it just helps me read so much better, and I can just get through, things that are like overly complicated. So I think, I think the game for that.
Yeah, I would say that the game it helps you make decisions fast, like in the moment, and it kind
Yes.
of like works that skill, like it
Yes.
works that muscle in your head where you're just like, I need to make the best decision now. And so like that's one thing that I like about it. It's kind of like training your brain. So I will say that there's a lot of like cognitive benefits from this game. Is it really trains your brain for like quick thinking. I guess just to close out, and I'm glad that you mentioned all the benefits and how it's helped you.
Hmm.
When you're talking about reading, actually, one of the ways that I learned how to read, especially when I was transitioning from Spanish to English, was reading a lot of comics and reading a lot of card games. And so that's kind of how I got um, into anime and mangas, was just like teaching myself. And so whenever he brought up Yu-Gi-Oh, I was like, it's something from our past, but it's something that we connected in, and then we started playing. But I guess just to close everything out, and going back to your inner child, um, would little Troy be proud of you? Just the person that you are, the person you've become. I still see a lot of lightheartedness in you. You're still super playful. I think you just see life as like a fun game, and you're just in it, to have fun. So, would little Troy, if he was looking at you, if he was here with us right now, I mean, he is because he's in you, but if he could talk to you right now, would he be proud of you?
Yeah, you know what? And I'm not saying to humble myself. Of course. Look where you and I have ended up, and we're doing really great. You know, it's been a roller coaster to say the least, and I'm pretty sure if the little Troy was looking down or looking up right at me, you'll
Mm-hmm.
see how much of what he's built and
Hmm.
like how much he's created, especially in this game called life, right?
Yeah.
Um, I mean, if you look, I've got everything a man could want, right? Got a
Hmm.
home, I've got cars, I got a beautiful wife, and I've got a lot of great hobbies. I have a lot of talents, I have a lot of skills, different jobs. I have a really fantastic job that I really love.
Hmm.
And I'm, exponentially, I'm going to get better at it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, little Val would think the same. Look how much you've came up and look how much you've, like improved and you've built a lot of great things. And, look at us together. We've
And we're still
built,
having fun. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. We are having fun and, it's just every day is an adventure. Every
Yeah.
day is an adventure. But I will
Yeah.
say about the game itself, I think for you and I could speak for, you and I both. I think this game has really kind of like helped us become great communicators.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We've, I will tell you right now, like there'd be sometimes where Val would be very, we'll be so confused about the different types of card effects that we try to figure out. Remember when we started playing Ash Blossom? We started playing
Oh, we
that
were
trap
playing
card I
it so
mentioned.
wrong.
We
Yeah.
were playing it. We were playing it so wrong. We thought that each turn that you had on the field that you could add a card from the deck to the hand. So we were playing it completely wrong.
Yeah.
It goes back to reading the cards, right? So we were trying to communicate that message. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that going back to that, I think little Troy would be proud.
Yeah. I think just to wrap this up, I would say that you and your partner should have something that you guys can both do to help
Yes.
both of you guys share like a shared passion or shared love. But also for us, this has helped us figure out how to communicate. I think our first argument was actually about dual monsters. So it's
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
wow, that's our
Yeah.
biggest
Yeah. Yeah.
worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but learning how to problem solve
Um,
together and how to have fun together, and then how to like disagree together and then shake hands afterwards. So yeah, I would say that if anything, this game has shaped a lot of the way that we communicate. I think games have shaped a lot of the way that we communicate, just in general.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if we do more podcasts, for anybody that's watching, it's gonna be pretty funny. So I think what Val and I are probably gonna do here in the future is because we play also the video games. We play a lot of DayZ, which is a apocalyptic survival horror game.
Yeah.
We play this like frequently, sometimes like on the weekends, just on
Mhm.
our off time. We play it with my best friend Mario, and the game is just so fun. I think what we'll do is maybe we could do a live stream and talk about the game as we play and go
That'd be
along, which is
cool.
pretty,
Yeah.
yeah, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. But yeah, video games like that's brought us together. Yu-Gi-Oh has like increased our communication skills,
Oh
especially
yeah.
with each other, and
Yeah.
and just able to just solve complex problems, and we'll just continue to learn. And I
Yeah.
hope for everybody that watches, I'm just gonna say for parting remarks, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like the game is forever evolving. There's a lot of changes that are being made, especially in the rules. There's always forbidden and ban lists that are being updated every month. New cards are being created almost every single month. There's new booster
Yeah.
box
The game is
releases.
alive and well.
It's alive and well. But like I said in the past, just go out, have fun. If you do plan to do locals and regionals, just have fun with it, man. And see see how good you can do. Make it fun, make it competitive. At some points, right? There's nothing like saying like, oh, but you can't be competitive. But yeah, you can be competitive for a little bit. That's what else makes it fun.
Yeah.
Just like remember, just don't make it your life. Just have fun with it
Yeah.
and everything else just flows through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is about all the time that we have, but I just want to thank
Woo!
you for this
Yeah, of
amazing
course.
chat, for being my first host in a long time. So I just want to thank you.
Of course.
And everyone, this is Deep Naked Thoughts with Val and my guest, Missionati. Thank you
If
guys.
it,
Please
Thank
follow,
you guys.
subscribe. Bye.
Yeah, please
Mwah.
follow, subscribe, and also since I will be starting up YouTube here very shortly, please follow me on Missionati Official. I will also be doing a podcast called Wired Brew. So try to follow that as well, and I will also do a combined podcast with Deep Naked Thoughts.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.